proactive thinking. And Martin Lewis, who founded the charity, the Money and Mental Health Policy Institute. Hello, both of you.
Hiya.
Thank you very much for coming on the programme. Thanks for your patience as well. It is a theme of the morning. Lee, welcome. Tell me what was going on with you in terms of your mental health and what stage it got to.
So I've got a diagnosis of bipolar disorder and have manic and depressive episodes, and it just got to a stage where I'd gone through manic episodes, spending money that I sometimes had got, sometimes hadn't got. I'd got into serious levels of debt. I'd got piles of unopened letters in bags in a back bedroom. I'd got bailiffs knocking on the door. I'd got debt collectors knocking on the door. I was just in a place where I couldn't handle what was going on. I couldn't control what was going on. It was just getting darker and darker and darker. It was becoming an uncontrollable situation.
What kind of, I mean, were you sort of conscious of what you were spending and why?
At times.
Yeah.
So during phases of the manic episodes, I might know what I was doing, I might know what I was spending, but it's almost like, now I'm in a much better place. I tend to emotionally eat. I think a lot of people probably do as well, but and when I'm emotionally eating, I might put away some chocolates that I shouldn't really be thinking about, and it's the same with money. I'd have money that was there and I'd spend it, and then there might be some tech, or I might have gone on holiday for the weekend and I'm thinking, I really shouldn't have done that, which would then bring on a spiral of depression.
Sure.
Because you've got the come down, really.
How much debt in the end?
In the end, it was about £32,000 worth of debt.
Wow. Which
is very difficult to deal with. I tried looking for the right level of support, tried getting signposted by therapists at the time or mental health professionals, and they signposted me to the likes of the CAB, which at the time just didn't work. It was the equivalent of looking on Google. And just not getting the right support.
And the issue, Martin, is that when somebody is in that, has reached those depths, if you like, the idea of then being chased to pay those debts, which you've got to do, which people have to do, but at that moment, when you're, when your mental health is at such an acute stage, it's just not, the money's never going to be paid back.
Well, look, thank heavens Lee is here to be a brilliant advocate of this, but there'll be many people out there who could have advocated for this who aren't with us because their mental health was so severe. There are 6,000 suicides in the UK each year. And there is, of course, a strong link between those and those who have an acute mental illness for a period. Now, breathing space is something that, with my day job hat on, I've been campaigning, which says if you've got debt crisis, whoever you are, and you go to a debt counselling agency, one of the non-profit debt counselling agencies, they can put a 6-week hold on your charges and your interest and you being called. The reason for that's quite simple. First of all, it allows people to get their financial house in order. And that is not just beneficial for the individual, it's actually beneficial for creditors, because if you haven't got the money to pay, you haven't got the money to pay. If you can sort it out, they're more likely to get their cash back. But the problem with people who have an acute mental illness, who may be hospitalised due to this, is asking for help with your debts and going to a debt counsellor isn't practically possible. So what we've looked at and said, there are 20,000 people out there who we need medical professionals to be able to say, if breathing space is coming in for those who can ask for help, we have people who are temporarily incapable of asking for help. They need that hold too. And we launched this at Parliament today with the help of Labour MP Luciana Berger and Tory Johnny Mercer. Luciana was talking about a man in her constituency who came out of hospital having been discharged that morning and got home to an empty house, which the electricity being cut off and bailiffs at the door. Wow. Somebody suffering from acute anxiety has bailiffs at the door. That can't be right in a civilised society. Now, no one's done anything wrong here, but what we're trying to do is say, this is one of those policies that's never been looked at. How do we protect those people who are at their most vulnerable, who also have financial problems? And what you do is you say, you get breathing space too, and it can be triggered by a medical professional. It can be retrospective if it has to be, if nobody's spotted that you've got those problems, financial problems, when you've been taken into a ward for an acute chronic mental illness and you've been sectioned, for example. And it'll just put a pause on afterwards. 6 weeks isn't long enough. I don't think it is long enough for main breathing space, but it'll do as a start. That's the campaign.
What do you say to those people who say, mostly you know what you're doing when you're getting into debt, you make the wrong choices and you have to take responsibility for that?
I think I certainly know what I'm doing if I got into debt. I think someone who has a chronic mental health condition, maybe a spending compulsion, bipolar, which can lead to spending compulsion, depression spending, all of those issues, they may know what they're doing, but knowing what you're doing and being able to control what you're doing are not the same thing. The reason for setting up this charity was to help people protect themselves when they're well, as Lee thankfully is now, from themselves when they're not. But we also need other structures to be put into place. I can't see many people out there arguing that someone whose mental illness is so acute they've been hospitalised because of it, that they can't cope with their day-to-day life, should be being chased and harassed by creditors, should have charges added on their charges because they can't make a phone call. And we're talking at that acute level of the pyramid today. So I accept your point, and of course people have to take responsibility. Breathing Space is actually about enabling people to try and pay back more debt once the pressure is off. It's not about getting people to run away. Of course, you can go bankrupt and there are things that you can look at. But this today is just that so many terrible stories. And it's worth remembering that the stats show, and they're loose stats because researching this is very difficult, someone who has a financial issue when they have a mental health issue, for example, clinical depression, the treatment time is extended by 18 months if you also have a financial problem.
Really?
These two are married. You're 4 times more likely to be in debt crisis if you've got a mental health problem than everybody else. And we're trying to divorce those issues.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you, Lee.
Thank you.
Next, senior executives from Oxfam are giving evidence to MPs about the recent scandal involving the charity. At the start of the hearing, Oxfam's chief executive in the UK, Mark Goldring, was asked by the committee chairman whether he would apologise for both the actions of the charity's workers in Haiti, some of them admitted sleeping with prostitutes, but also comments made by him in the Guardian newspaper at the weekend, which appeared to downplay the seriousness of what had happened.
I do apologise. I was thinking under stress. I'd given many interviews, I'd made many decisions to try and lead Oxfam's response to this. I was thinking about amazing work I'd seen Oxfam do across the world, most recently for refugees in coming from Myanmar. I should not have said those things. It is not for Oxfam to judge issues of proportionality or motivation. I repeat Oxfam's broader apology and my personal apology. I am sorry, we are sorry for the damage that Oxfam has done, both to the people of Haiti, but also to wider efforts for aid and development by possibly undermining public support. So I wholeheartedly apologise for those comments and commit to work in that greater public interest so that Oxfam can make a powerful role in the work that we all believe in.
Mark Goldring, the boss of Oxfam. This morning, we've been hearing calls for the government to criminalise upskirting as a sexual offence after police data showed that one complainant was 10 years old. So many of you have got in touch on this story today. Jan says, some time ago, a tradesman in our home shone a torch at my long skirt when my back was turned. I was disgusted and I was upset, and the police weren't particularly interested and took no action. Leslie says, to deliberately take pictures of anybody's private parts, whether covered or not, without consent is an abuse, and any abuse is an assault on that person's freedom and privacy. Craig says, let's not call it #upskirting, let's call it gross sexual intrusion. Of course it should be an offence. If some 18-year-old student thinks upskirting is funny, where does the joke end? What man does that boy become? And Anna says, of course, uplifting is awfully humiliating and part of a world of male power. But it's no use quoting the law. Police do nothing unless there are multiple offences over a time frame. Any witnesses? No. Police won't do anything. And Jack says, when I was out with my granddaughter, she was walking a bit in front and I observed a pervert taking a photo of her up her skirt. I grabbed the man and gave him a deserved kicking and smashed his phone to bits with the heel of my boots, and the pervert ran away screaming. Let's talk to Rosie, who got in touch. Rose, who got in touch with us. Rose Hexter, who's in Newton Abbot in Devon. Hi, Rose.
Hi, Victoria.
Hi. What happened to you?
Oh, it was many years ago. I belonged to an amateur dramatics group, and there was a party organised after a show, and I basically my skirt was lifted and a photograph was taken, and it was shared around the actual group, and it was very, very embarrassing.
Right, okay. So how did you feel?
Oh, humiliated and angry. And I actually challenged the person who took the photograph, and I was more or less told not to be silly, and it was just a bit of fun. And you know, I was encouraged to let it go and brush it under the carpet, you know. But I I was very upset about it, and I'm wondering, you know, you're always aware, well, who's seen it, who's looking at me, and has actually seen the photograph. So yes, it was very, very degrading.
Why did that person do it, do you think?
Whether they were drunk, we'd all had a bit to drink by that time. I honestly don't know. I don't know what possesses people to want to do that to somebody, you know. And this particular person could be unpleasant, I think, but I really don't know, Victoria. I don't know what possesses people to take liberties like that, really.
Do you think it should be a specific criminal offence?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. It's a sort of assault, really, isn't it? And I certainly believe it should be it should be criminalised. Yes, yeah.
Thank you very much, Rose. Really appreciate you coming on the programme.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Rose Hexton, who got in touch with us in Newton Abbot in Devon. Earlier on the programme, I spoke to 3 people who have experienced this. One of these was Liv Moore, who was upskirted on the tube last year, and she told me it was shocking that it happened to someone as young as 10.